The purpose of this presentation is to describe the steps I took to conduct my educational technology internship. My name is Megan Galbraith, and I'm currently a graduate student at Loyola University in the Educational Technology program. During the day, I'm a paraeducator, as I have been for the past 3 years. I work with grades pre-K through 5. I teach math, writing, reading, and social skills. Prior to being a paraeducator, I taught 6th grade for 1 year, and I also have experience as a substitute teacher. The overall objectives for my internships were that after instruction, paraeducators would gain knowledge of new technology tools that can be integrated in instruction for the purpose of ultimately increasing the use of technology. Paraeducators will increase student engagement and allow for differentiation to meet the needs of each student. To begin my internship, I created a proposal. I submitted that to my Loyola advisor on January 30th. She gave me some feedback. I made some revisions. I went on to submit it to my principal for approval in February. After I obtained that approval, I began my first session on Kahoot in March. My second session took place in April, and I discussed Padlet. And my last training session was on Popplet in May. And after completing all 3 of my training sessions, I sent out a survey to my participants to get their feedback. The current situation at my school is that there's a lack of access to technology among paraeducators. We currently don't have a computer in our office. In order to access one, we need to go to a computer lab, and the computers can take a long time to load, and we have a minimal amount of planning time. And this can ultimately hinder students since they might miss out on technology when we pull small groups to the pod, since we don't always have access to a smart board or devices like teachers do in their classroom. And unfortunately, students can become unengaged in the lesson and the learning process. I believe that technology can help meet the needs of our diverse learners and provide resources to help customize their lessons and their learning materials. Prior to my training sessions beginning, I sent out a survey to my fellow paraeducators who were all willing to participate. I wanted to see if they were familiar with the tools I was planning on presenting to them. A few of them were familiar with Kahoot and Padlet, but a majority of them were not familiar with any of these tools, which was good. I wanted to present them with new information. I also wanted to find out how they wanted to use technology during instruction. And they wanted more hands-on opportunities for their students. They wanted more interactive experiences, games, teacher games, research, quizzes, test reviews. They wanted to use laptops and ultimately enhance learning and support the lesson to keep students engaged. I also wanted to hear how they learned best in order to plan that into how I presented my training sessions. A majority of my colleagues benefit from hands-on experiences. They want to have it modeled to them, as well as some written information, giving them time to explore. So visual, hands-on experiences after modeling. I also wanted us to keep in mind why technology is so motivating, why we want to utilize it in instruction. And the responses I received that it is more hands-on, especially for special needs learners. It's more interactive and engaging. Students love to use it. They are excited to use it. It's much more fun. And it's part of their day-to-day lives. They can see how it affects them, and they are already familiar with it. So we want to tap into that to motivate them to use it in their daily routine in school as well as at home. The content I selected was I chose to demonstrate Kahoot, Padlet, and Padlet since all of these tools have free versions. And additionally, they're all interactive for students and they can be customized to meet the needs of diverse learners. I planned on conducting my training sessions on early dismissal days. I set aside 30 minutes of instruction to demonstrate the technology tools to my colleagues. This way it wouldn't interfere with instruction and they wouldn't be taken away from students that they work with. My first session on Kahoot took place in March, and my colleagues had a lot of fun. I warmed up with giving them a quiz about lunch duty expectations. We all have to serve in the cafeteria, so they were very competitive and they were engaged seeing the results on the board. After that, I discussed with them how they could use it for students and I modeled how to create their own. They had a lot of great ideas saying it would be good for pre-assessment. They could use it in math, reading, social studies, a variety of subjects. And after walking through how to create one, I allowed them to explore and create. And at that time, I walked around and checked in with people that needed a little bit extra assistance. But they did really well with it and they need very minimal assistance. And they were able to create a lot of quizzes. And we took some time at the end to participate in quizzes that my colleagues created. My next session was on Padlet, and I began with posing a question for my colleagues to answer. I asked them what were their favorite activities to do in the summer, and they gave me feedback that they like to travel, visit the beach, take some time to relax. So I discussed with them how they could use it with students. They thought it would be a good fit in reading lessons to pose questions about chapters or characters, and all the students could respond on one page. So I walked through with them how to create their own Padlet, and I allowed them time to explore and create after that. And I touched base with individual colleagues that needed a little bit more help. One of my colleagues was a little bit overwhelmed by all the options and choices that you could do with it. So I took some time and I worked with her one-on-one to create a Padlet rather, that she could use in a math lesson that would be helpful with the unit that we were currently working on in geometry. She could ask the students how they could identify quadrilaterals, what were some of the examples they could come up with. And it was positive to see my colleagues supporting each other. If someone got stuck on something or was wondering how to insert a photograph, there were some colleagues that figured it out on their own and they were turning and showing each other. So it was very positive for me to see them collaborating and supporting each other in the training session. My last session was on Padlet in May, and it kind of got off to a little bit of a rocky start. I wanted us all to join the same Padlet and be able to comment on it, and they were all able to pull it up, but we weren't able to comment on it, and I was able to figure out that eventually we needed to all be added as a collaborator. At that point, they hadn't set up their accounts, but I decided to move on from that. Everyone created their account. I modeled how to create their own, and then I gave them time to explore. And I checked in with my colleagues, and they did really well with Padlet. They were able to create a lot of meaningful graphic organizers, character webs. A lot of them used Disney characters, and they talked about their character traits. They inserted pictures. They figured out how to do that, and they showed each other, which was also encouraging how they were taking ownership of the material and figuring out things on their own. Throughout my internship, I wanted to address 5 key concepts. The first one I met was multimedia production. Candidates will be able to create multimedia products that facilitate K-12 instructional and professional learning goals and implement an instructional design model to facilitate student multimedia productions. So for this key concept, I created 3 videos that would review how to utilize the tools that I talked about, so my colleagues could reference them if they needed a refresher on how to create a Kahoot, a Padlet, or a Poplet. And I uploaded all those videos to YouTube so they could access them at home if they wanted additional practice. And I sent it to their email so they could also view it at school as well, so they can continually work and practice those new skills we worked on in our training sessions. The next key concept was models and theories of change. Candidates will be able to apply models of change to understand the current situation of technology and innovation in a school. The models I used to help analyze my current situation at my school were I used Rogers' perceived attributes. I thought the relative advantage of paraeducators training in various tech tools would be increased student engagement. There was a positive perspective of technology in my school, which allowed my initiative to take place and hopefully further integration of technology. The complexity of the issue would be that my colleagues were kind of apprehensive to use technology during instruction. A few of them are not digital natives, they don't feel confident. But with my training session, my goal was to help them increase their confidence and help them to feel more comfortable using technology during instruction. For triability, I selected tools that would offer free accounts, and I encouraged continued practice. I sent out those how-to videos so they could continue to practice the tools even after our sessions. And observability will be evident when paraeducators incorporate more technology into lessons confidently. This step hasn't taken place yet, but I feel like with their increased confidence, they will be more likely to utilize technology in lessons. I also examined the current condition at my school with ELE's 8 conditions. There's definitely a dissatisfaction with the status quo. My colleagues are frustrated to not have as much access to technology as they would like, but they did have sufficient knowledge and skills that I could build upon by showing them the resources. On the early dismissal days, I had availability of resources and time. Laptops that students normally use, we were able to use. We were able to use a 5th grade pod space, and we had time on the early dismissal day, so that way we weren't taken away from instruction. We were able to fully focus on our training. The incentive for my internship was the knowledge that they would gain. My colleagues were really motivated. They really want to learn these skills. And professional development sessions that were offered, we don't often have the chance to work on technology skills, and they really want to use them. So I had 100% participation from beginning to end, which was very positive for me. Everyone was committed to coming to each session, to completing any surveys that I wanted them to complete prior to our training. And it helped me to improve my leadership skills, to help guide their learning, and I hope ultimately they can emerge as technology leaders in our school with the new skills that we have practiced. The final model I used to analyze the current situation at my school is the ACOT model. We're currently in the adaptation stage where students are fully engaged in using technology and they produce a variety of products, and assignments can be completed completely on their devices. With that being said, there are a few teachers that are resistant to integrating technology, and hopefully more teachers can get on board and we'll eventually get to the appropriation and invention stage, but it's currently not yet evident at my school. And my hope was that paraeducators would become more well-versed in technology so they could seamlessly integrate technology and instruction and boost student learning. And hopefully they could eventually be technology leaders in their school. The next key concept I addressed was leadership skills. Candidates will be able to demonstrate the ability to lead technology initiatives at the school or district level. And for this, I created my proposal. I submitted it to my principal, who read through it and approved it. She was on board. We discussed it in person, and she was willing to supply me with a space to work and plenty of interrupted time to conduct my training. My next key concept, professional learning. Candidates will be able to apply models of professional learning to begin the process of real change in a school. My artifact for this was the final survey that my colleagues completed. So let's take a look at those results real quick. So I had asked how they would use technology during instruction after completing our trainings. They said they wanted to get students more involved, use it during small groups, reading lessons as a formative review, as an opportunity to give all students a chance to answer and really boost student engagement. And they thought it would be good for brainstorming and, once again, enhancing student involvement and interest. I also wanted to see how comfortable they felt using Kahoot, Padlet, and Poplet during instruction after our trainings. And about half of them said yes. A few really enjoyed Kahoot and felt the most comfortable with that tool. And I had one that responded somewhat. I believe that more training sessions would help increase their confidence and help them feel more confident with using those tools. I also asked on a scale of 1 to 5 how likely they were to use Kahoot, Padlet, and Poplet during instruction. 1 being not at all, 5 being as much as possible. About half had 4s or 5s, so they wanted to use it as much as they could, and a few of them had 3s, so kind of middle of the road some of the time, but I feel like they want some more training and more practice with these tools before they feel completely comfortable. The next key concept, professional advancement. Candidates will be able to determine and implement the best approaches to improving their technology integration efforts through a continual process of self-evaluation and reflection. So throughout my internship, I kept a journal where I would write a response after each session. So I had 3 responses after my Kahoot session. I talked about what went well, some ideas they came up with for instruction. I included some photographs. I also did an entry for after my Padlet session and for my Poplet session. I will share my overall reflections for my process a little bit later in this presentation, but this was the journal that I kept throughout the process. My overall reflections were that our workspace was really conducive to collaboration. I felt like that really helped facilitate the training sessions. We had a whiteboard in the front of the room and we were all at a horseshoe table, so they were able to turn and talk, and I was able to walk around and touch base with people individually. I thought it was very positive that I had consistent participation throughout my training. I was maybe a little bit worried at first that some people might not be able to participate throughout the whole session due to time and other scheduling issues, but they were, which was positive. And at the end of each session, I received a lot of positive, constructive feedback from my colleagues, which I used that to help enhance each of the training sessions and helped me to reflect over what things went well and what things could be improved. Some of those things that I thought could be improved for next time or further trainings would be more frequent training sessions. We met about once a month. I feel like a more frequent basis would be beneficial to my participants. And overall, I feel like a greater access to technology would be one of the most positive impacts for my paraeducators, so they could really feel confident and actually use these tools in their instruction. Additionally, I felt like time kind of hindered the training a bit. I wish we had some more time for more uninterrupted trainings. The next steps would be researching grants to possibly secure funding for devices for paraeducators. I know next year I heard that we're getting a desktop computer in our office, so that's a step in the right direction, but eventually I hope that all paraeducators have devices. I thought bring your own devices days would encourage the use of technology, and ultimately in the future, more sustained and frequent training sessions would be positive. And in those future training sessions, I would like to incorporate more participants. And my hope is that former participants, I'm referring to my fellow paraeducators that participated in my first 3 training sessions, could assist in leading the training opportunities. They could emerge as leaders and gain confidence in their educational technology skills. Well, thank you for watching. I look forward to hearing your feedback, and I really enjoyed completing this process.